Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining the Neuro Pro meditation webinar. My name is Austin Ganesh. Joining me, I have Nazanin.
Hello, everyone. I am Nazanin Hosenka. I am the manager for the Neuro Pro 2 device. And Austin and I have a great guest, Sanjay Manchanda. Dr. Manchanda is here to talk about meditation. Please go ahead, Sanjay.
All right. Hi, welcome, everyone. I am going to talk a little bit about some of the principles and research leading up to the meditation protocol that's included as a pre-programmed protocol in the Neuro Pro 2 device. So let me share some presentation here. All right. So the Neuro Pro 2 device is it's a highly sophisticated device with 12 LEDs and is highly programmable. Each LED is independently programmable in frequency and timing. And so to help you to work with it, it comes with a set of pre-programmed protocols for various, to help to improve various functions of the brain. And in our case, we are particularly interested in the meditation protocol today. But before we go there, we know that photobiomodulation and the Vielight Neuro Pro device in general can support many different brain functions. For example, it can help with learning, with cognitive flexibility, with focus, with the creativity and critical thinking, and general executive processing skills, as well as with memory. So we already know that photobiomodulation can support a lot of functions. And in my own research, I got interested in how we can use this for meditation. And we also know that meditation is helpful for functioning in our life and for brain function. Regular meditation increases cortical thickness in certain areas, enhances connectivity in certain networks, and boosts certain areas and quiets other areas to help us to move through life in a more flowing and easy way. And in turn, meditation practices influence neural dynamics. So they affect the electrical activity of the brain, as shown, just as an example of some EEG activities shown on the slide. And they create changes in various brainwave bands or patterns, such as alpha, theta, beta, gamma, etc. So the question then arises is how we could support meditation activity. To introduce that, I'm going to first talk a little bit about brainwave entrainment, which is a well-known phenomenon. For example, when you flash light into the eyes at a certain rate, for example, 4 or 5 times a second, the brain waves, actually, the brain and the brain waves are modified in relationship to this flash frequency. So that's why people with epilepsy are sometimes warned to not to look at flashing lights that are flashing slowly, because they can trigger seizures due to this kind of connection between the flashing and the frequency and the pulsing in the brain. Electrical activity. Similarly, when you listen to music at a certain beat, the brain waves and your whole physiology is affected by the beat. And there's also a principle called binaural beats, which is specifically used to influence EEG. And so this principle can be used to support, to modify brain activity in different ways. So this principle can be used to support the modification of brain activity in different ways. And then the question arises, okay, well, what happens when we flash the Neuro Pro LEDs into the brain at different frequencies? And it turns out that there's somewhat similar effects that happen. So in general, if we were to try to affect we try to affect meditation with something like the Neuro Pro. In general, if we were to try to affect meditation with something like the Neuro Pro, we might go through the following steps. We want to capture the EEG signature of a certain meditation, use brainwave entrainment to take the brain towards that meditation signature. So that's the idea behind some devices that are available to consumers, for example. And there's this is a very simplified picture. It's a complicated situation. Different meditations and meditators also have different and sometimes unclear signatures. But what we look for is what might be some common elements. So Vielight has some excellent research on this that shows that when you pulse infrared the LEDs into the brain using their neurogamma device, that has a strong influence on the EEG signature in the brain. For example, when you flash the brain 40 times a second, you get increases in the EEG power in the alpha, beta, and gamma bands. So we know that we can have an effect on the brain waves using this device. And so then the question arises is what frequency of flashing or frequencies of flashing and what sequence and timing should be used for meditation? So this is something that's part of my research and something that I'm a long-term meditator, meditation and teacher and spiritual teacher, and also a neurofeedback practitioner, as well as have been doing neurostimulation with people for various problems of the brain for decades. So this is something that's interests me, and I've been doing some research on this subject. So just to introduce the idea quickly, we don't have to go into detail here. This is a summary of connections of the various frequency bands in the EEG, along with the various functions of the body and the brain. So in general, the brain is like a symphony and of various frequencies or notes, and including high notes and low notes. And whichever note is predominant has something to do with the state of the body and mind. So when the delta note, which is the lowest frequency in the brain, is predominant, it's associated with deep sleep, healing, and other unconscious states, as well as repair and recovery. So at night, when you're sleeping and recovering, the delta and the theta rhythms become more predominant. These are the slower rhythms. So theta is connected with relaxation, creativity, daydreaming, resource allocation, learning, etc. And when you move to the middle ranges of low beta and beta, that has more to do with being present, having more external focus, and functioning in a way like we're doing right now. The gamma frequencies, high frequencies, and they appear and disappear. And when they appear, they have to do with high-level cognitive processing, binding different elements of experience, sensory experience together, and higher performance, meditation, etc. So in general, over many years, working with brain frequencies, training brain frequencies, stimulating brain frequencies, we can see certain trends. So here we're just looking at, say, delta, theta, beta, and high beta. In general, as the frequency increases, the focus moves from being internalized to externalized. So the lower frequencies, your attention goes internal, your energy drops, you get more relaxed and peaceful. As your frequency increases, your focus gets more externalized, your energy and arousal goes up, the body awareness drops, and the state becomes more activated. So that's what I was just saying. As you increase the frequency of reward or stimulation in the brain, the energy level goes up, the body awareness drops, the arousal goes up, and the focus goes up. And it can also move into agitation if it's too high and your system can't handle it. We can think of frequencies as an index to different states of awareness, as well as your experience of yourself. And we have plenty of experimental evidence to show this, and then we've been doing some studies on this as well. So the lower frequencies take you towards the body, towards your instinctual functions, and the unconscious and the pre-personal and pre-rational realms. So in fact, in the biofeedback training, we sometimes use low frequency alpha theta training to access past memories for healing, because they're easier to access in these low frequency states. At the same time, when you go to the really high frequency realms, you can start to access more of the spiritual realm, the intuitive realm, the superconscious, and the transpersonal realms. So this is just a general, very oversimplified, but a general way of thinking about this frequency range that's available in our system, and how we can then support the brain to move into these ranges is our next question that we're going to look at. So there's some evidence to show that long-term meditators induce high amplitude gamma synchrony, which means that they have more power than non-meditators in the high frequency gamma bands. And these high frequencies are synchronized across the brain. So there's a couple of papers on that talking about this increase in gamma and it's also true of high performing people, musicians, mathematicians, etc. So in the past, meditations have focused on creating more low frequency power like theta and alpha, but we started looking at high frequency and its connection with meditation, which is unique to our research. Turns out that the brain produces high frequencies and during normal functioning, but they're harder to see because they get filtered out through the skull, which acts like a filter. And it turns out that certain psychedelics also associated with increasing gamma power and gamma synchronization in the brain. So all of this makes us interested in these higher frequencies. This is this is like an old model of the Neuro Pro 2 that we were working with when we first started our research. And here we're working with exploring different frequencies with a famous meditation teacher. And what we found was that if we combine low and high frequencies, and I'll explain why, then we get some really powerful effects. So people will report things like expansion, states of expansion, feeling lightness, perceptual clarity, having more clarity in terms of seeing and hearing things, more peace and joy, higher levels of energy, reduction in unnecessary thought. And this is with a combination of low and high frequencies that we go through a sequence, for example, of stimulation of the brain using the device like the Neuro Pro. One way to think about this balance of low and high frequencies is to think about low frequencies being associated with states of calmness and equanimity and focus, and the higher frequencies with associated with states of energy and joy and bliss and investigation. So in general, to have a balanced state of mindfulness, we want to balance the low frequency and the high frequency factors. So we want to balance the calming factors, for example, with the energizing factors. So in meditation, you want to be really, really calm, but if you get too calm, you're going to fall asleep, basically, and you also want to be really, really present, and that requires energy. Now, in meditation, you can have very pleasant states. Joy and bliss will arise, but you don't want to get all focused in it and get super excited. You want to temper that excitement with equanimity, and which is an equal-mindedness and non-attachment. So this kind of understanding is already available in the meditation community, and it's somehow connected with the different frequencies of EEG in the brain, as well as how we're going to stimulate them. So in general, when we're able to balance the low and high frequencies and then do more high frequency stimulation, we find that people report increased self-observation, equanimity, joy, feelings of expansion, etc. And we can keep going higher. For example, we can go to the solfeggio scale of frequencies and we get more expanded states of awareness. And if they're not well balanced by calmness in the system and the low frequency in the brain, then you can also get some agitation, dissociation, and discomfort. So we did a study based on our own protocol of a combination of low and high frequencies with 20 people using a single blind crossover design. And we showed significant results and improvements on the mystical experience questionnaire. So subjects reported more mystical experience in the active sessions of this crossover study. So what is the meditation protocol that's based on these ideas that's included in the Neuro Pro? So basically, what we do is we start by stimulating the brain at 1 cycle a second for 3 minutes, follow up with 5 cycles, 7 cycles, 10 cycles, 14 cycles, 3 minutes each, and 40 cycles a second. So we're slowly ramping up from low to high. And in the meditation protocol, as you start to do this, you're welcome to use your favorite meditation. So you do your favorite meditation, you turn on the protocol, and you just sit, and it slowly starts ramping up, starts with relaxing, helps to relax your system and create a base of calmness, and then moves into the middle ranges where your focus will improve, and then moves into the higher ranges where it helps you to allow your focus to expand out, as well as your experience to expand out into more of the refined states. So we would love to see how you all respond to this kind of a protocol. It's 25 minutes. And this serves as a basis for other meditation, more sophisticated meditation protocols that we'll be providing on the Neuro Pro in the future. So that's what I have to say about it. If you have any questions, Nazanin and Austin, feel free.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for explaining all of that. And so I have a question for you. So let's say I'm someone I'm very new to meditation. I buy a Neuro Pro device and I see this protocol. What is your recommendation for someone just looking to try it now, getting started? What should they be doing? How should they be meditating? And yeah, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, there's so many ways to meditate, you know, and so, I mean, firstly, I would say if you have a meditation that you like, you can certainly do that. And with this, try it with this. There's at least a few types of meditations. One are more focusing types of meditations, for example, focusing on the breath. So that's a very classic, simple meditation, or focusing on a mantra. So these would be what often we have beginners start with, a focusing meditation, say on a breath or a mantra that they can repeat. And I would say just start that way. I mean, also other kinds of meditation are, for example, open awareness meditation, where you just sit and observe your mind and body process with certain level of equanimity. Whatever arises, you just notice it and let it be, and then just stay present with the sense of your whole being, your whole body, actually. So that's another meditation. We could think of providing meditations. I mean, I do guided meditations, and which include things like scanning the body or focusing on the quality of space. So there's many options. I think we'll have people pick try a few and pick what's right for them. But ultimately you should use the meditation that you can do, because meditation can be difficult and the device should make it easier. And also you should choose a technique that's working for you. There is no fixed one that I've seen that should be used. Different meditations fit different people at different times.
Wonderful. And so my other question is, I see that in this protocol you're using, you're ending with some very high frequencies. I'm just wondering if the body's ability to process these high frequencies, and if you can talk a bit about like how it is a meditator is able to process these, because a lot of people think that the body, we use 40 hertz in our mainline devices, but this is going all the way into the 400s.
Right. That's a good question. I didn't talk about that. Yeah, it's unclear how these high frequencies are, but it's a mechanism through which they're helping you to change state. I mean, it's not a simple idea like you flash a light at 10 times a second into the eyes and the brain picks up 10 hertz and starts to increase it. It's not that simple. What happens if you're flashing 432 hertz into the brain? Is it really picking up 432 hertz in the EEG? Probably not, and it has certain other physiological effects, which in my theorizing, and have to do more with the switching that happens at the interface of the cells. So it more has to do with cellular signaling. And but I think basic mechanism is actually unclear, like with a lot of this stuff right now. We just know that the subjective effects are there, at least in long-term meditators. And so we're continuing with our research on that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how more beginning meditators respond to these high frequencies. One caveat I might add is that if you find that the last higher frequency, for example, seems too much for your system, just stop the meditation early. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Great. Those are my questions. Thank you so much, Naz.
Yes, Sanjay, thank you very much. So you mentioned about 432, which is, I guess, the frequency of nature. I had an experienced meditator in our office. She performed this 432 hertz, and she said she couldn't get out of that meditative state. Like she was forced to come back to that focus, which is very interesting.
So she felt altered, is what you're saying. Oh.
I guess so.
That's
Yes.
what we want, right? We want people to say this does something.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I actually have two questions for you. So you mentioned that you would like to stay in low frequencies to maintain your, let's say, a body function and be calm.
Right.
At the same time, you would also go in an expansion realm.
Yeah.
Your way of looking at that is brushing, I guess, the brain, starting with low frequencies and going all the way up.
Right.
I was also thinking with Neuro Pro device, we have the cross-frequency coupling feature.
Yes.
This is an
Now we
added
do.
feature.
Right.
Do
So
you
that's part of
foresee?
that's all. It's such an exciting field of research. Now we get to, with the Neuro Pro 2, we get to do low and high simultaneously. We don't have to sequence it and see what we can do with it. I'm looking forward to playing with that feature.
Oh, that's amazing. So maybe we could actually, in the future versions of the device, we could implement some of those cross-frequency. So that the low frequency and the high frequency are stimulated at the same time. That's perfect. I have another question regarding some side effects that you mentioned. You mentioned that people at higher frequency might get some agitation. So I would like to elaborate on that if in case someone comes back with questions, if you could share your experiences and then what is it that people can do at that time?
Yeah, so what you can just do is do more low frequency to calm yourself down. Okay, so there's two ways you can get agitation is if you do the stimulation for too long. We know in general that there's an optimum, dose response curve. So you don't want too high a dose of photobiomodulation because that produces too many free radicals. And so if you're overdoing it, then in terms of time, so that so much more energy is going into your brain, that's one thing that can cause some symptoms. One thing you can do for that if you're overdoing it is to take some antioxidants like vitamin C. That will actually help your system to actually deal with the free radicals that are produced. But in general, the high frequency, if it seeps too much for your system, is to avoid the higher frequency step and range in general when you have the device for a while, or do it for a smaller time, and then go back and do some low frequency stimulation, which will calm your system down. Yeah.
That's perfect. So nothing very serious. It's just a bit of agitation that they could experience.
It's interesting that photobiomodulation is such a safe modality. Yeah, it really is. And it's true that the brain uses high and low frequencies simultaneously. The high frequencies ride on the low frequencies. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much. That was all my questions.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sanjay.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.